The Bending Light Simulation is an interactive educational tool designed to help students understand the principles of refraction and dispersion of light. This simulation allows students to explore how light bends when it travels between two media with different indices of refraction. By providing a hands-on and visual approach, the simulation enhances students' understanding of the fundamental concepts of optics. The Bending Light Simulation focuses on the principles of refraction and dispersion, which are crucial concepts in the study of light and optics. Refraction occurs when light travels from one medium to another with a different index of refraction, causing the light to bend. Dispersion is the phenomenon where white light is separated into its constituent colors as it passes through a prism or other dispersive medium. The simulation includes various tools and visual aids to help students explore these concepts in depth. The simulation allows students to explore the bending of light between two media with different indices of refraction. The index of refraction is a measure of how much the speed of light is reduced in a particular medium compared to its speed in a vacuum. Students can experiment with prisms of different shapes and materials to observe how light bends and disperses. Prisms are optical elements that refract light, separating white light into its constituent colors due to the different indices of refraction for different wavelengths. The simulation allows students to control the wavelength of light, enabling them to explore how different wavelengths bend differently between two media. This helps students understand the concept of dispersion and the relationship between wavelength and refraction. The intensity meter is a tool used to measure the intensity of light as it passes through different media. Students can observe how the intensity of light changes as it refracts and disperses. The speedometer is used to measure the speed of light in different media. Students can observe how the speed of light changes as it travels from one medium to another, affecting the angle of refraction. The wave detector is used to visualize the wave nature of light as it travels through different media. Students can observe how the wavelength and frequency of light change as it refracts and disperses. The Bending Light Simulation provides a hands-on approach to exploring the principles of refraction and dispersion. By adjusting the indices of refraction, prism shapes, and wavelengths, students can observe the several key concepts. When light travels from one medium to another with a different index of refraction, it bends at the interface between the two media. The angle of refraction depends on the indices of refraction of the two media and the angle of incidence. Students can observe how the angle of refraction changes as they adjust the indices of refraction and the angle of incidence. White light is composed of a spectrum of colors, each with a different wavelength. When white light passes through a prism, it is separated into its constituent colors due to the different indices of refraction for different wavelengths. Students can observe how the colors of the spectrum are dispersed as they adjust the shape and material of the prism. Different wavelengths of light bend differently when they travel between two media with different indices of refraction. Students can control the wavelength of light and observe how the angle of refraction changes for different wavelengths. This helps students understand the concept of dispersion and the relationship between wavelength and refraction. The intensity of light changes as it refracts and disperses. Students can use the intensity meter to measure the intensity of light as it passes through different media, and observe how the intensity changes with the angle of refraction and the wavelength of light. The speed of light changes as it travels from one medium to another with a different index of refraction. Students can use the speedometer to measure the speed of light in different media and observe how the speed of light affects the angle of refraction. The wave detector allows students to visualize the wave nature of light as it travels through different media. Students can observe how the wavelength and frequency of light change as it refracts and disperses, reinforcing their understanding of the wave properties of light. The Bending Light Simulation offers several educational benefits. The simulation provides an interactive and engaging way to learn about the principles of refraction and dispersion. Students can actively participate in the learning process by adjusting the indices of refraction, prism shapes, and wavelengths, and observing the effects on the bending and dispersion of light. Refraction and dispersion can be abstract and difficult to understand. The simulation provides a visual and tangible representation of these concepts, making them more accessible and understandable. Students can experiment with different indices of refraction, prism shapes, and wavelengths, and observe the resulting changes in the bending and dispersion of light. This exploratory approach encourages critical thinking and problem-solving skills. The simulation provides a practical application of the principles of refraction and dispersion, which are fundamental to many real-world phenomena, such as the design of optical instruments, the behavior of light in different media, and the appearance of rainbows. This helps students see the relevance of these concepts in everyday life. The simulation introduces students to the process of data collection and analysis. By using the intensity meter, speedometer, and wave detector, students can collect data on the bending and dispersion of light and analyze the relationship between the indices of refraction, wavelength, and the angle of refraction. To implement the bending light simulation in the classroom, teachers can follow these steps. Begin with a brief introduction to the concepts of refraction and dispersion and their importance in the study of light and optics. Provide examples to illustrate these concepts and explain how the simulation will help students understand them. Demonstrate the simulation to the class, showing how to adjust the indices of refraction, prism shapes, and wavelengths, and observe the changes in the bending and dispersion of light. Explain the importance of observing these changes and how they relate to the principles of refraction and dispersion. Allow students to explore the simulation in small groups or individually. Encourage them to experiment with different indices of refraction, prism shapes, and wavelengths, and record their observations. Provide worksheets or prompts to guide their exploration and data collection. After collecting data, have students analyze the relationship between the indices of refraction, wavelength, and the angle of refraction. They can use the formulas for refraction and dispersion to interpret the data and draw conclusions. Facilitate a class discussion to share and compare findings. Encourage students to reflect on what they have learned about the principles of refraction and dispersion and their implications. Ask them to consider how these concepts apply to other areas of optics and everyday life. The bending light simulation is a valuable educational tool that brings the principles of refraction and dispersion to life through an interactive and engaging context. By allowing students to explore how light bends between two media with different indices of refraction, experiment with prisms of different shapes and materials, and control the wavelength of light, the simulation provides a hands-on learning experience that enhances understanding of these fundamental concepts. This interactive approach not only makes learning more enjoyable, but also fosters critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and a deeper appreciation for the relevance of refraction and dispersion in the real world.